Well, hello, and welcome to Stop, Let's Team Up, My Legion Adventure, episode 77. And we're going to call this episode Farewell to Action, because I'm going to do, as a little bit of catch-up and just to pull the Band-Aid off, is I'm going to finish up my coverage of the Legion in as the backup in action. You've heard what I thought previously, and we're going to cover the last four stories from 389 through 392. There's a two-parter in the middle, and there's a little element-centric stuff, so I'm excited to talk about these four comics. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible, but still get you the pertinent data. So let's start with 389. It was published, was on sale date, was April 30th, 1970, cover date June 1970, editor Mort Weisinger. The Legion story is called The Mystery Legionnaire. It's an 11-page tale written by Cary Bates, pencils by J. Winslow Mortimer. Inker Jack Abel. It's been reprinted 3 times. Legion Archives Volume 9, which all 4 of these are in, and I move on to 10, which is, I'm going to talk about that at the end. Showcase presents Legion of Superheroes Volume 2, trade paperback, and Legion of Superheroes Silver Age Omnibus Volume 3. Main characters of Legion of Superhero, and the roll call is Cosmic Boy, Shrinking Violet, and Chemical King, the star of the action era. The villain is Clem and several disabled convicts. The synopsis from Mike's Amazing World is this. Clem, an android constructed by several disabled criminals, was defeated by the Legion. However, the head of the android escaped. Now the body of the android has regained its power and seeks to rejoin the head. Cosmic Boy, Chemical King, and Shrinking Violet track the body to Voran, where the android was constructed. After battling their way through booby traps, the Legionnaires find the head. Clem wants revenge against the Legionnaire who defeated him, but in the first battle, his vision was damaged. He thought Cosmic Boy and Chemical King were the same person, while Clem announces his revenge plan. Shrinking Violet disables him, ending the threat. This wasn't a key. This is one of the typical of this. Legion is a backup. It's just a simple little story. Clem's really the main character, and they're booby traps. It's 11 pages with a really kind of silly, kind of just anticlimactic climax. It was a backup. This is not one of the most stunning ones. I like seeing Chemical King. One of the things I've liked about action was I got to see more of him because I didn't know. Some of these, if I read them, I didn't remember them or I just skipped them. But I didn't get to see as much of him in action, and I do like that. I do like seeing Shrinking Violet. I like these little small teams. But overall, it's just a basic, simple story. The art is better. I have less problems with it. It's kind of blandness and simplicity, as I've gotten used to Mortimer and Abel together. I don't think it's one or the other, because I think when Mortimer's stuff, there's stuff I like and there's stuff I don't. Just think it's the perfect storm. So, but we're going to move on, because I don't have much more to say about that, because there wasn't much to that story. So we're moving to 390, which was published on May 28, 1970. Cover date July 1970, with Mort Weisinger, the editor. The Legion story is called The Tyrant and the Traitor. It's a 12-pager. It's part 1 of a 2-part story. Written by E. Nelson Bridwell. Pencils by J. Winslow Mortimer. Inks by Jack Abel. Originally Archives 9, Showcase 4, and Legion Omni 3. As before, Legion of Superheroes roll call: Saturn Girl, Chameleon Boy, Brainiac 5, Element Lad, woohoo, Timberwolf, Karate Kid. Prody 2 appears in this, and it is the Dark Circle or the baddies, which I kind of like. And there are a couple more. It's just a little complex. I'm not going to go into that. Synopsis is Chameleon Boy puts together a team of Legionnaires. It's the Espionage League. Yay, Squad. I like that. I don't know if this is the first time it is, but I'm really digging it. So I like that. So Chameleon Boy puts together a team of Legionnaires for an undercover mission on the planet Lahum. The planet was recently taken over by dictator Perelia. The United Planets wants Perelia overthrown. However, the leader of the local revolutionaries is Dial Mazrin, who's secretly allied with the Dark Circle. Chameleon Boy and his team infiltrate Mazrin's camp, while Saturn Girl takes a job as an assistant to Perelia's chiefs of scientific development. I did like this story a bit. I see it's very Mission Impossible, but TV Mission Impossible, not the. So, Legion Espionage Squad's boss is Chameleon Boy, and he pulls out the photos and he picks the 5 other Legionnaires he wants to go with him. Brainiac 5, Timberwolf, Element Lad, Saturn Girl, and Karate Kid. And on page 2, there are these great flashcards with their abilities. Brainiac 5, Supermind. Timberwolf, super strength and acrobatic ability. Element Lad, power to transmute one element to another. Saturn Girl, telepathic powers. Karate Kid, super karate, master of all forms of hand-to-hand combat, weapons expert. So I thought it was cool. So they go undercover. They infiltrate the groups, and it's going pretty good. They're battling these new hominoids, and to get to meet Mazrin, who is part of the Dark Circle, which makes them all a little nervous about it. And Saturn Girl gets the gig with the other one. So everything's just set up. This one ends with just a setup. But what we don't know is Saturn Girl is known by someone she grew up with on Titan. It works in Perella's office too. So the second issue, 391, we'll cover this together. So let me move on to 391. For the second part, the ordeal of Element Lad. Element Lad front and center. Okay, again, Mort Weisinger. This one was cover dated August 1970, June 30th, 1970 cover date. The ordeal of Element Lad, 10 pages. Same creative team, Bridwell, Mortimer, Abel. But I'm going to say G.A. Winslow Mortimer again because I like saying it. Same reprints, Archive 9, Showcase 4, Omniv 3. Roll call is the same. Same villains. I remember this. This was The Punishment of Superman Super Son was the lead feature in this. Got a great Swanderson cover, and I love those. I remember those were coming out when I was, 5 or 6. I was 5 going on 6 when these comics came out. So I may have read this and not realized it. Wow. The synopsis is Legion has gone undercover on the planet Lahum to help overthrow Perelia, a dictator, however. Dial Mazrin, the leader of the revolution, is an agent of the Dark Circle. The Legion cannot allow him to take power. With the help of Element Lad's power, the disguised Legionnaires defeat Perella's army. They then storm the capital and defeat Perella. Then Element Lad tricks Mazrin into betraying his own men by changing the treasure given to the troops into worthless materials. Mazrin is deposed, preventing the Dark Circle from taking over. Again, this would have been a good single-issue story. I think with a little better art, a little better coloring. It is really kind of brown. It's just weird selection of colors. And I don't think it really works overall. But it's better. It's better as a 2-part story because I read it back to back. That's kind of one reason I'm doing all 4 in one sitting, because these are all very light. This one was a good one. It was nice to see Element Lad be front and center, and because I always do like him, and he's going to get a little bit next in the next story. This one is from Adventure Comics 392, cover date September 1970, published July 30th, 1970. Mort Weisinger is the editor. This time it's Cary Bates, J. Winslow Mortimer, and Jack Abel. Same reprint sources. Legion of Superboy, Legion of Superheroes. Roll call is Cosmic Boy, Saturn Girl, Chameleon Boy, Brainiac 5, Sun Boy, Mon-El, Matter Eater Lad, Element Lad, Karate Kid, Princess Projecta, Shadow Lad, Shrinking Violet, and Ultra Boy. Also Marla Lantham, as he is in here in the background. Oh, that's cool. Been a while. Saturn Girl and Princess Projecta are sent on a mission to capture the space renegade Poser Do. When they find Poser's ship, they are ambushed and knocked unconscious. After gaining their senses, the girls discover Poser is gone, so they return to Earth. However, their own teammates no longer recognize them. The girls are imprisoned as spies. They escape and split up to discover the reason for the situation. Projecta first confronts Karate Kid. She encounters Prince Projector, her replacement on the team. She exposes Projector as Brainiac 5. Her teammates including Santa Girl, then explained the reasons for the deception. A computer predicted the projector would break under pressure, so the team conducted a test for her mental fortitude. She passed. Mon-El is then sworn in as team leader, and Lilliman Ladd is sworn in as deputy for the first time. Yay! So this is another fan voted on election. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. But this is a silly thing where something happens. It's all a trick. It's a test. God, I think I've got bogged down in these Silver Age legions because this repetitive plot thing, which I've talked about. Again, this is just kind of a toss away. There's going to be a huge shift in quality, I think, in the next archives because there is. Again, this is just a real simple story. There's not a lot to talk about with these things. I would love to talk endlessly about how wonderful things were and how great the art was. They're not terrible. They are professional. They're nice. They're tidy. It's a good reprint in the archives. I just find this has been one of the most, I think it's the most unsatisfying year of Legion for me overall. And it bogged me down, man. I've really only did a few of these in the last few months, several months, because it was just tough. I had other things. I'm reading a lot more comics. Work is crazy. I've been on vacation all week, and I posted to Starman. I was going to post this on Wednesday, and then I realized, you know what? I'm enjoying reading Fantastic Four, Stan and Jack for the first time in a read through, and I decided, because me and Kirby have been talking about West Coast, that I'd read all my West Coast hardcovers at the same time. So I'm jumping in between them. It's going to change. It's going to create something. What I'm going to do over the next year and I'm going to make my posts a little more detailed, but I'm going to have 4 rereads kind of going on. I think jumping issue or 2 and then jumping in and out so I don't get bored. And it's going to be, I'm going to do FF until I get through the end of Omni 4. And then if Omni 5 is out by the time I get to it, I'll continue. If not, I will pause and go on to something else. I will continue West Coast Avengers. I will stop it at the end of this arc, which is past 20. I have the hardcover, the Engelhardt ends, or the hardcovers I end with 25. I will, not 25, 30, and I will go on until I get to the end of the arc and then pause it until a time when I want to pick up, because the Engelhardt era is the era I really wanted to reread. But I'm also going to start reading the Fourth World books in publication order. I have the Omni of the Jack stuff. I've got the Omni of the Byrne Simonson stuff. And I've pre-ordered my one that has everything in between those two, including Great Darkness. But I'm going to cover it as a New God story and not as a Legion story. And that's the reason I'm reading it. I'm reading those. So, and the other is Justice League International, because the 3rd volume's coming out. That has it in its entirety, and I have not reread it. I'm not going to do podcasts on it. I may jump in and talk about it, because there's a wonderful podcast already out there about it on the Irredeemable Shag podcast. And I will post a link to that in the show notes, which is, they're coming to an end. They get to breakdowns, which is the last story. So I'm going to go back and listen to it as I read. So I had a brain fart and I couldn't remember the exact title of this wonderful podcast. It is Justice League International Bwah-Ha-Ha podcast. It is the Irredeemable Shag, an ever-changing roster of guest hosts, and they covered all of it. And how many episodes was it? 60 breakdown. Wow, it's only 60. Well, it's only 60 issues. So I'm going to start listening to this, and I'm going to be posting a link, because I listened to Shag's other stuff. I'm about to listen to Earth 2. Did a Christmas episode that dropped the last few days, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to start listening to Bwah-Ha-Ha and enjoy it. I know I'm going to enjoy it. I can't wait to listen, and I can't wait to do that reread. And I may do some other rereads. I do want to continue with Legion. We just had this little sidebar about Justice League. I'm looking forward, because Volume 10 of the archives covers the Superboy, when it becomes a backup in Superboy and then takes over in 197 as the title, the main story, which is the first one I remember reading. And there's a lot of Dave Cockrum and some wonderful George Tuska. I love George Tuska. He's kind of my first Iron Man artist and one of my early Legion artists. So I'm looking forward to both of those, all that. So, folks, I hopefully will have another Legion one in the next 2 weeks, and we'll cover 2 or 3 of the little backups. And I hope you enjoy these little Legion episodes. They're kind of down and dirty, and I don't think I hope they were somewhat entertaining. It was tough for me, as these aren't some of my favorite stories. They are just a product of their time. I don't think they hold up. I think sometimes when I was reading the 50s stuff, I think they were better. The early shooter stuff was amazing. I don't think he ends as well as he starts. I mean, that's hard because those 2-parters he did are still some of the best Legion stories ever produced. Ever. I mean, I put them up with Great Darkness. I put up Surprise and Mysterious Story 2-parter, and the Universo 2-parter. I'll put them up with Great Darkness Saga and the Universo Project and other things later on. Earth War. Just absolutely magnificent stories. But these are just kind of back page filler. They're meant for a very young audience. Or preteen. They don't translate well. They're repetitive. And I think that's they were all kind of just chewing the formula. And I think we see a little bit of the DC had problem creatively at the end of Silver Age before they adapted to the Bronze Age and started kind of doing some of the stuff that Marvel did with, backstories and a little bit of soap opera, but also the quality the art went up a little bit. And that's no offense to Mortimer. He's a great artist, but I think you need that influx of Tuska, and then definitely Dave Cockrum and George Perez and Jim Sherman just ticking it up a bit, which leads to the first Levitz run. And then, I mean, it has peaks and valleys, and especially after he leaves and before he comes back. But this this last few months of Legion reading been a little bit tough because they're not up. I know how much good stuff is coming, and I know how much good stuff I'd read, and it was just a long stretch of just workman, everyday superhero comics of the late 60s, early 70s, without a lot of extra to them. So that's about it. I'm going to stop bashing this here, and I'm going to move on. I'm excited. Hey, folks, thank you for listening. Thanks for listening to me ramble about stuff. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to be more active on social media. I've been very just kind of post and duck out because just mental bandwidth and work and everything and just too much. I've just spent 7 days off, and it's been a huge help. So, and I got to read a lot of comics. But until then, folks, hey, be safe, be smart, please be kind to one another, and read some comic books.